Welcome to the Political Fallout Shelter, where we give you the latest military and defense news from here, a windowless basement way below the Capitol. I'm Leo Shane, Deputy Editor at Military Times, and this is Joe Gould, our resident aluminum and steel tariffs expert, and our Capitol Hill correspondent for Defense News. Joe, how are you feeling this week?
Feeling good. It's a slow week on Capitol Hill. We are in the start of a 2-week recess.
Always nice to get a break. Before we get into everything else, let it not be said that I don't pay my debts. Joe, last week I said $5 that we would have a government shutdown. We did not, so congratulations on that win. However, it was much closer than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, in fairness, it is always a safe bet to government dysfunction is always a safe bet. Yeah.
So look, we've got a full year budget now. We shouldn't have any shutdowns until September. But it was a mess getting here.
Yeah, that's right. Why? So you were watching it. Why did it? How did it almost run aground?
Yeah, I mean, you and I both said last week that it was going to be a push to get this big omnibus budget passed, even though there was an agreement on how much defense spending there would be, even though most of the details were there. It was just going to take a while for it to get through Congress. So we saw it pass on Thursday in the House, and it wasn't until really late Thursday night, actually Friday morning, that it passed in the Senate. But we thought we were good at that point.
Right, and there was a lot of stop and start until then, we should say. I mean, a lot of staff, congressional reporters were waiting for this thing to finally drop.
But we thought it was fine. We thought we were good to go. And then Friday morning, as we're putting together our story saying we're good, we're not going to have a shutdown for 6 more months, the president tweets out, "Hey, I might veto this thing."
By the way, after the White House had said that he was going to vote for it.
And this was the infuriating thing that you had leadership in the House and the Senate saying, "We've cleared this with the president. We think this is all. We know this is all good. He's given the okay. He said that it's got great military
stuff." Sarah
stuff."
Sanders, the White House spokesperson, said it was okay.
So
they put out a statement.
This tweet on Friday morning threw everyone for a loop. Up here, people were just out of their minds. Lawmakers are getting on planes at this point. They don't know if there's going to be a government shutdown. And then we see an announcement from the White House that there will be a 1 p.m. press event where the president will talk about this.
Right.
And he talks about it. He says, "Look, I hate a lot of this bill. There's too much stuff in here, but
I'll never vote for a bill like this again."
Right. But it's so important for the troops that we're going to move ahead. There's military funding, money to recapitalize and modernize, that we have to go ahead with this, even though it's a terrible bill." So.
Well, what was interesting about that is that echoes the sort of the main talking point that we were seeing from House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. This is a $1.3 trillion bill. It funds the whole of government, but you almost wouldn't even know that. I mean, they're talking about they were really pushing the defense side of this bill, the troops. I mean, and I think that's a reflection of the bipartisan kind of across most of the fractures, across the fractures in the Republican Party, across the partisan divide. If you talk about troops and taking care of troops. So I think and you could see that it was a winning formula for them because, that was the big messaging that they used to punish Democrats for their resistance to passing the deal, the caps deal initially.
Well, and that's part of what I want to get into here is the president really in his 1 o'clock press conference, he gave a really big push on the military side, but also gave a push to Democrats don't want the money for the military. The Democrats are inserting other things in here. A lot of confusing parts to this. First off, the veto threat seemed insane. The veto threat, it seemed like he never really had any intention to veto this bill. He just wanted more people to watch the 1 o'clock show, and he wanted to, it's the reality.
I think there are different voices talking to the president, right? We have Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, but also we saw that Bob Corker, who's a fiscal conservative in the Senate, reached out to him and I think even tweeted out and said, "Please veto this bill." So I don't know. I think, last year around this time with the budget deal, like we saw the president, I think the Democrats sort of won the messaging war. Like it looked like the president got rolled. He didn't get the wall funding that he wanted. I mean, I just, my sense is like maybe he didn't want to look like he had, he didn't want to look like he had gotten rolled again. But if he can hold up the defense spending, it looks like, hey, and Democrats and portray Democrats as not wanting it, right? He got one over on them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, look, there's a lot
Except
of
that they
discussion.
did want it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of discussion up here about Democrats tying the military spending to other things, to the State Department, to domestic spending and all that. And look, this has been litigated, relitigated. There's a lot of hard feelings about this, but it's not exactly what the president said in his press conference. The president said Democrats didn't want military funding. He made it as literally, these guys who just agreed to $700 billion in defense spending didn't actually agree to that.
Right.
This is money that we forced in on them, so we get the victory.
Yeah, what they've always said is that they want a match between defense and non-defense. Increases in defense have to be matched by increases in non-defense. And actually, they agreed to a deal where they didn't have that exact parity. I think there was like a $20 billion difference.
Yeah.
So.
But they did. I mean, look, we've heard Adam Smith, the ranking member in House Armed Services Committee, talk again and again about how he thinks the military is underfunded. And there's that strong contingent within the Democratic Party that says we need more money for the military, but also we need this. So it just, on top of what seemed to be a reality show advertisement for Watch My 1 p.m. press conference, we've got this message from the president that is very disconnected from the actual debate here.
Well, there were some, actually, now that you bring up Adam Smith, there were some notable no's among Democrats. Steny Hoyer voted no. He's the minority whip in the House. Nancy Pelosi voted yes. Steny Hoyer, who's sort of her deputy, voted no. But also Adam Smith did too. And I think that there were some misgivings about voting for a bill that didn't include, a fix for young immigrants, the DACA fix that we've heard about, so.
So let's talk about what's actually in this bill now. I mean, this $700 billion for defense. We've been, the Pentagon has been screaming, crying, kicking to get a full-year defense budget for quite some time. Talk to me about how, let's talk about what's going to be in this, and also how are they going to spend it? There's a lot of money real quick in a short amount of time.
Right. So, yes, to answer your first question, there are a lot of ships, jets, a lot of military hardware. The defense industry is likely to be they're very pleased about this. I think it's some $60 billion boost. There's an increase in R&D. And how they're going to spend it actually was like part of the conversation here. Kay Granger, who is the lead appropriator for defense in the House, and others have pushed for some kind of flexible spending agreement. So there is some of that. Without getting down into the weeds, there is a little bit of that that allows them to operations and maintenance money, which is usually only like 1 year money. They're getting a little bit of an extension. There's some easing of the ability to reprogram.
Just to get down in the weeds a little bit, they're getting a little bit of an extension, but we're still talking about hundreds of millions of dollars flushing in here that they've got 6 months to spend for the most part, and with a couple of percentage adjustments and with a little bit more of a cushion. So, so there's no reason to think that we're still not going to see the same rush of defense spending on what some might call frivolous items at the end of the fiscal year here. I mean, September is still going to be a rush of, crap, we've got all this money left over, let's get it out the door, let's get something, let's get some TVs in here, let's get some F-35s in here. Like, what can we bring in, what can we buy here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see, but they did take steps to try to alleviate that, but we'll see what happens.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
So what wasn't in the bill?
Well, from my perspective, the big thing was there was this talk of a gigantic veterans deal in here. We're talking about 3 different, somewhat unconnected major issues across veterans, but caregivers expansion, which has been a real priority of Democrats and some Republicans up here, an overhaul of the whole health system, which has been the dominating topic on the veterans beat for the last year or so. And then a conversation about a BRAC-style VA systems closing, looking at a bunch of these outdated hospitals, outdated facilities, and seeing if there's ways to save money by closing them, just like we did with BRAC, independent commission, all this. So all of these topics have been floating around out here for quite some time. There was an agreement from the key Senate Democrats, key Senate Republicans, key House Republicans to move ahead with this gigantic, again, big omnibus budget. Let's go even bigger. Big veterans omnibus policy bill too. Stick it on there. House Democrats didn't want to go along with it and pretty much tanked this deal. And now everyone's looking, saying, was this the last chance for us to get this done this year? I mean, look, this is an election year. We're not expecting a lot of really intense debates on Capitol Hill between now and the fall because they can be problematic for people getting reelected. This was the big money issue for this year. So these issues for VA that we're talking about are another $40 to $50 billion over 5 years. Are they going to be able to afford that? If they don't do this, there's some health issue reauthorization problems that come up in May. But more than that, it's just unlike last year where there seemed to be a veterans victory every couple of months, and Trump could go back to this, and Trump could rely on Secretary Shulkin. This seems like another missed opportunity, another misstep up here, and a lot of lawmakers saying, I don't know, are we going to be able to get anywhere?
Well, I mean, that's one of those things that you see with the omnibus is that it's when you have one big train that's leaving the station, everybody wants to get aboard. Right. And I mean, I think that's what we've heard about this omnibus. It's sort of like the last major bill until the next bill, which is going to be the NDAA, the Defense Policy Bill, which I think they're going to start marking up in May. Just like October, once Halloween is over, they start putting Christmas on the shelves. It's like the omnibus is over. It's time to start putting the NDAA on the shelves for defense reporters.
No, and that one is one we track every year, but really becomes a catch-all bill in a lot of sense. Yeah. It's setting the spending parameters, not actually appropriating the money, but setting the general outlines. But it's all those extra little policy things come in. I mean, in recent years, there's been regs on Army hairstyles for women. There's been regs on, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was originally part of that.
Just to be clear, the VA stuff would be a stretch for the. That's not going to show up in the defense policy.
No, I mean, there's a couple of things, but none of these big things. There's some stuff with bad paper. There's some stuff with electronic medical records to come over, but yeah, that's not it. So we still will see an opportunity for some of these smaller bills, some smaller issues to get up there and to get included. But yeah, for VA, this becomes a big question mark moving ahead. So, all right, so Joe, look, since we're in the fallout shelter here, what's the next big political bomb you're watching for coming up here?
Well, we know that anything can happen on this season of The Apprentice. It's been very predictable thus far. But the personnel changes and sort of the fallout from the personnel changes. So. General McMaster is out as NSA chief, and Bolton is in. My national security Twitter blew up. I got a text message from a high school friend that I that I haven't talked to in years, who was like, "Hey, do I need to be worried about this guy?" He is a Hawks hawk. John Bolton is the former UN ambassador, a Hawks hawk. He's he's being talked about as having advocated for war in North Korea with Iran. So I think you got to look at him sort of in the context of all of these personnel changes, right? H.R. McMaster was one of the adults in the room alongside Rex Tillerson, who we talked about last week, was out. So who's left? Jim Mattis, right? And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see when Congress gets back in session and they start debating, Mike Pompeo for the CIA director who's been nominated as Secretary of State. How did some of these fears about the national security direction the Trump administration is taking, how they play out? Because the NSA is not a Senate confirmable position, right, so they're not going to really have a forum to.
Yeah, they can't go after McMaster directly, but what does that do for all the other appointments? I'm sorry, can't go after. Right, McMaster's gone.
Right. They can't go after him anymore. They can't go. Yeah.
Got to remember who's there and who's not there anymore. Right. They're having trouble keeping track.
Right.
Got it. Yeah. But to the point, they can't go directly after Bolton. So this is going to become so do they slow down Pompeo? Do they slow down whoever else is coming? The next CIA director. Yeah. What other positions come up here? One of the interesting things with McMaster is we had heard a lot of rumors that. Obviously his head's been on the chopping block for a while, as has Tillerson's, but there was a lot of talk about not wanting to push him out without a soft landing spot, maybe going over to Pacific Command, maybe going somewhere else, getting him his fourth star, so there wasn't the perception that serving in this administration is a death sentence to your career. That's not what happened. He just he left and he's retiring.
Yeah, but you can't who knows? Maybe that was his decision to retire. I mean, when you think about how many 4-star slots are there? It's not like they have a 4-star slot at the Pentagon laying around.
I'm just saying, if they were hoping to show that he could go to
they missed that.
They missed that opportunity again. So you've got in quick succession, you've got Tillerson, you've got McMaster.
There've been some ingracious exits.
It's just not a great look for them. Right. So. And talking about staffing changes, I'm still tracking the Shulkin rumors. Right. The VA Secretary David Shulkin, for 2 solid months now, has been rumored on the chopping block. And we saw again this week that more rumors that it could be a matter of days. They could be out there. Look, I've stopped handicapping exactly what day this is going to come down.
That's too
but
bad. I was just about to ask you to handicap
No, we're not
it.
doing. No, I already lost one bet to you.
Yeah.
I can't afford to do this every week. So, but look, it's clear that no position is safe for that amount of time. Again,
Yeah.
Shulkin was a golden boy for most of last year. Shulkin was the go-to. There's no problems with this position. There's no problems. We can keep going to VA for good news. And now, in the span of just a few months, everything has turned around. Everything has just gone bonkers.
Well, it
and
sounds like maybe he had a little bit of a target on his back as a former Obama administration official.
I think that's more revisionist history.
Okay.
I think that is, now that he has a target on his
Right.
back, let's emphasize that he was an Obama official, because he was next to Trump on a lot of these. He was.
Right. And the travel thing, nobody made that the travel business. That doesn't have anything to do with him being an Obama administration official.
Right. That just has to, and his handling of it doesn't have to do anything. It just has to do with, poor PR in that
Right.
case. But really, just we'll be, I'll be following that. So those nominations, those appointments, the cabinet secretaries coming and going, that's going to be something we're going to be tracking. Even though Congress isn't here, it doesn't mean that defense and military news stop. We had the big marches this weekend, which. I don't know how much you've been following that, but I'm sure military and veterans are going to start to get drawn into this gun control debate and where it fits in.
The transgender issue popped up late last week.
Very late last week.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it if these things would pop up during business hours a little
what
bit
happened?
more. So I just, maybe we got an order on the new executive order on transgender issues at 9:00 at night on a Friday. So which always tumultuous stuff. So look, plenty more for us to cover. We'll be tracking all this week at militarytimes.com and defensenews.com. I'm on Twitter at Leo Shane.
And I'm at Reporter Joe.
And we'll tune in next week, and we'll see what has us cowering down here in the political fallout shelter then. Thanks for tuning in.